The drama surrounding Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns has taken yet another shocking turn, and this time the narrative has shifted from pure football to something that feels far more calculated. The story broke when the team announced that Sanders had suffered an oblique injury during early practice drills and was immediately shut down for the rest of the session. On the surface, it looked like a simple precaution. Teams protect their quarterbacks all the time during preseason. But the deeper you look into this situation, the more it becomes clear that something doesn't quite add up. Reports from sources close to Sanders suggest that this so-called injury isn't nearly as serious as the Browns made it out to be. In fact, those sources insist that it's nothing more than minor soreness, something Sanders has played through countless times before without missing a snap. He had done it flawlessly just a week earlier, so why then did the Browns decide to take no chances this time? Why was the quarterback suddenly sidelined at a moment when the pressure was building for him to get more reps with the starters? That's where the suspicion begins, and it's why many believe that head coach Kevin Stefanski may not be protecting Sanders at all. Instead, he may be protecting his own quarterback depth chart, deliberately keeping a rising star on the sidelines before the situation forces his hand. For those who haven't followed every twist in this saga, the signs have been there all along. A few days earlier, Stefanski addressed the media after a preseason matchup, insisting that he wasn't just evaluating Sanders for a starting role. Instead, he said his focus was on developing all the quarterbacks on the roster equally. To casual fans, it sounded like the standard coach speak. Give everyone a chance, don't crown anyone too early, keep the competition alive. But when the Browns' official depth chart was released, things took a strange turn. Despite delivering what most analysts agreed was the best quarterback performance of the entire preseason, Sanders was listed as the fourth option. Fourth, not only behind the starter, but behind Dylan Thompson and Kenny Pickett, two players who were both sidelined with injuries at the time. It was baffling. How could a quarterback who had outperformed everyone else in live game action be buried so low on the chart? And then, almost on cue, came the announcement that Sanders was injured. Suddenly, the reasoning behind his lack of opportunities was no longer about performance or evaluation. It was about health. The timing was too convenient, too perfectly aligned with the growing chorus of analysts and fans demanding that Sanders be given a fair chance to prove himself with the starters. Even respected voices in the football world weren't buying the story. Dan Orlovsky, one of the most vocal analysts covering the preseason, didn't hesitate to call out Stefanski directly. On national television, Orlovsky argued that Sanders had already shown he was more than capable of handling the pressure. His performances spoke for themselves. According to Orlovsky, if Stefanski truly believed Sanders didn't deserve those reps, then he needed to prove it with evidence. Evidence that Sanders couldn't cut it. Instead, Sanders had done the exact opposite. He had proved that he could. Orlovsky's stance was blunt. Give him the reps, and if he fails, then at least you'll know. But until then, keeping him off the field was inexcusable, yet Stefanski didn't budge. And rather than answering Orlovsky's challenge, he leaned on the injury excuse. The oblique issue became the convenient reason to explain why Sanders wouldn't be playing in the upcoming preseason game. But that explanation rang hollow for many. The Browns themselves admitted it wasn't a major injury, just soreness that would be rectified by tomorrow. If that was the case, why rule him out of the game so quickly? Why treat minor soreness as though it were a season-threatening injury? For fans, the narrative didn't hold water, and that's why speculation has only grown louder. Many now believe that the Browns are deliberately manufacturing obstacles to keep Sanders sidelined. It's not about soreness, it's about control. Because every time Sanders has touched the field, he's given the fans a reason to believe he should be elevated into the competition. And every time that momentum builds, Stefanski finds a new way to stall it. This isn't just about football mechanics anymore. It's about politics inside a franchise that has long been plagued by questionable decision-making. The Browns' history with quarterbacks is one of the most infamous in the NFL. Dozens of players have been cycled through the position, and yet stability has remained out of reach. Now, when they finally have a young player showing promise, the coaching staff seems hesitant, even resistant, to give him the chance he's earned. The pattern feels familiar to longtime Browns fans who have seen talented prospects buried under odd circumstances before. The frustration is not just external. Reports have surfaced suggesting that Sanders himself has grown tired of the treatment. According to NFL insider Mick Wright, Sanders has quietly floated the idea of a trade if things don't improve. And the rumors have already linked him to the Los Angeles Rams, a team that could be a perfect landing spot. With Matthew Stafford nearing the twilight of his career, the Rams could use a young, developmental quarterback without the suffocating Pressure of being thrown into the fire immediately. For Sanders, it would be an environment where he could learn, grow, and eventually compete for the starting role on his own timeline. For the Browns, it could even be a smart business decision. Drafted in the 5th round, Sanders could be flipped for a 4th, giving the team more value than they invested, but even that potential solution isn't simple. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam has reportedly grown fond of Sanders and has no interest in letting him walk. Haslam's seen the groundswell of fan support for the rookie quarterback and recognizes the potential public relations disaster of trading away a player before he's even given a fair shot. This dynamic has created a power struggle between the coaching staff and ownership. Stefanski appears determined to stick with his veterans and avoid the risk of anointing Sanders too quickly, while Haslam seems to understand that the fans want to see the young quarterback get his chance. The tension is building, and it's only a matter of time before something has to give. Either Stefanski relents and puts Sanders on the field to silence the critics, or the noise will grow so loud that the Browns leadership will be forced to intervene. And if that happens, Stefanski could find himself in the hottest of hot seats, his job security tied to a decision he's resisted making. For now though, Sanders waits. He practices, he rehabs, and he watches as excuses continue to pile up around him, but the clock is ticking. Every rep he doesn't get, every opportunity that passes him by, becomes another chapter in a story that feels increasingly less about football and more about politics. The oblique injury may have been the headline, but the real story is about a franchise caught in its own web of indecision, a young quarterback stuck in the middle of a battle he never asked for, and a fan base desperate for clarity in a situation clouded by suspicion. And that brings us to the ultimate question: what happens next? Do the Browns finally give Shedeur Sanders the chance he deserves? Or do they continue to sideline him under the guise of protecting his health? Does Sanders stay in Cleveland and fight through the frustration, or does he push harder for a trade to a team like the Rams that might actually believe in his future? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is clear: this story is far from over, so now it's your turn. Do you believe the Cleveland Browns are faking Shedeur Sanders' injury to keep him out of the quarterback competition? Or do you think Kevin Stefanski has a legitimate reason for the decisions he's making? Is this truly about protecting a young quarterback? Or is it about protecting a coach's reputation? And what about the trade rumors? Would a move to the Rams be the best possible outcome? Or should Sanders stay and fight for his spot in Cleveland? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear where you stand. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth coverage, and join the conversation as we continue to uncover the real story behind one of the most dramatic quarterback sagas of the preseason.